Welcome to the first episode of Mayor Heather Graham's podcast called Mayor's Mixtape. I'm Haley Robinson, Director of Public Affairs for the City of Pueblo. This is a weekly podcast with a recap of city events and updates from City Council, straight from Mayor Graham.
Yes, I think that this is an important way for us to get our information out because we don't really have media outlets that cover City Council every meeting or things that are going on, important city issues. And I think that this will help with the citizens, making sure that they get all the information that they need, whether it's something that the mayor's doing, something that the City Council is doing, or something that the city in general is doing.
Yeah, so we can go over ordinances that were discussed at City Council, or even just kind of talk about your vision or things that you want to bring up to citizens and maybe explain a little more in depth than what you would have at Mayor Commentary.
Yeah, I think it's like Civics 101. Some people don't know exactly how the city functions when it comes to budget. We have a lot of conversations right now with Black Hills and municipalization and the May election that, now we will have a May election that passed last night on City Council. And so I think that this is just a way to keep the public informed. You see a lot of communities doing podcasts like this, and we'll be able to answer citizens' questions, talk about topics that are important to the citizens, and just make sure that people have correct information, not disinformation and misinformation, because we've seen a lot of that going on in City Council and the City Council meetings right now. And so we just want to make sure that we're transparent and honest and can be accountable to the citizens.
Great. Awesome. Okay, well, that kind of covers why we started this podcast. So let's dive right in. I think we'll cover a couple of major topics today. But Mayor Graham, you recently submitted an op-ed to the Colorado Springs Gazette, and you also posted it on your Facebook page.
Unfortunately, the chief didn't want to take it.
Okay. This was in reference to House Bill 25-1147, which is focused on capping penalties for municipal ordinances and violations at the same level set by the state. Can you expand more on why the city is opposing this bill, or why you're opposing this bill?
Sure. So currently the city has a home rule authority. We have our own municipal court in which lower level municipal offenses are taken through our municipal court. So whether that's trespass, loitering, disorderly conduct in fighting, or theft from merchant. So anytime an offender is ticketed for those instances, they are sent through municipal court. The state legislation is proposing, really led by our own senator, Nick Henriksen, is proposing taking that away from municipal court and running it through state court and only having the fines and jail time equal to what the state imposes. So it's really taking our ability away from sentencing what we think people should be sentenced. It's really going to affect our habitual offender ordinance. So if you're, caught doing a bad act 3 times, you're in more trouble than you are the first time doing it. So the state doesn't have a habitual offender. And they also do not have mandatory jail time for any of these low-level sentences. So essentially what will happen is once this passes, because we know how Denver is trying to decriminalize everybody and everything, all of these charges, these citations are going to be going through state court. So that's going to be through our DA's office. Our DA is very short-staffed right now. These are all low-level offenses. These will not be priority cases that anybody in that office will probably be trying. And so you're going to see people getting away with these offenses specifically. And these offenses are really the ones that we see the community cry out about the most, right? These low-level crimes are affecting their property, they're affecting their businesses, they're affecting quality life for everybody in the community. And it's unfair that the state wants to come in and say one size fits all, and you will take everything through state court now. So it will be very unfortunate for our community when this passes, because it's probably going to pass. Myself and Chief Knoller and City Attorney Sykes are headed to Denver tomorrow to testify on this legislation, along with many other municipalities that also don't agree with the state coming in and saying, one size fits all. Another one of our ordinances that we have in place that I think is really important to the community is the littering. So if you're caught illegal dumping you will face a $1,000 fine. So if that has to go through state court, your fine is only up to $300. So you're not going to have the same punishable offenses. You're not going to have the same consequences. And we are going to see a modern day Gotham City in the city of Pueblo, because people will not face an immediate consequence, or maybe even a consequence at all.
So that would also affect like our trash task force, which is a city county led initiative. And then, like you said, it would affect the everyday complaints that we get from our citizens.
Yep. Merchant theft probably being one of the biggest ones. When I was on city council, I had passed an ordinance that if you are caught stealing $300 worth of merchandise and convicted, you will get a mandatory 3-day jail sentence. That's really helped curb our number of theft from merchant tickets. I think we saw over 650 in 2023, and it was dropped to 450 in 2024. So you saw a 30% reduction in merchant theft, and I have to believe that that ordinance had something to do with it, because there was an immediate consequence of 3 days mandatory jail time. Once the state takes this over into their courts, there is no mandatory jail time, and there is no habitual offender. So if you steal, you're going to get a ticket, and you can probably go back and steal 20 more times, and nothing is going to happen to you. And it's unfortunate. We're seeing stores leave our community. We're seeing how small businesses are being robbed, and you're getting not even a slap on the wrist. You get a ticket, and you're allowed to go on your day and rob another store. So it's this legislation is going to be really harmful to our community.
So then what kind of, what does that leave municipal court with? Because those major crimes that you just listed, what would we see then?
Traffic.
Okay.
So traffic, dog at large, any kind of an animal ticket, those would still run through municipal court. So there won't be a need for us to staff municipal court the way that we staff it. The offenses that I listed before, a lot of the times we don't get fines collected. You know, we do a lot of restitution with volunteering or community
graffiti cleanup.
Yeah. And the city really isn't in it to get the fine paid. We're in it to make sure that there's an immediate consequence. These people are taken off the street. And that's just not going to happen now. And we're going to see a change in the community.
Okay, so that leads us to another discussion that happened last night. It was only on first reading, but the ordinance about merchant theft, you mentioned it earlier. So if this legislation were to pass, how does that affect this potential merchant theft ordinance?
Yes, so it won't matter.
Okay.
But this ordinance will go into effect hopefully on March 10th is when it will be passed. It will go into effect immediately. And so we're dropping the $300 to $100. I believe that people in the community have learned, don't steal more than $300 because you're going to spend 3 days in jail.
I know
if you're
the
found.
threshold.
Oh, yeah, totally. And so now we're going to drop it to $100. I think if you steal, period, you should go to jail. But some people don't agree with me, so we'll leave it at $100. And I think that we're going to see a lot more tickets now being generated because people are stealing between $100 and $300 just so they're not getting caught. So now $100 or less is going to be pretty hard for somebody to walk into the shoe store and steal six pairs of shoes. You're only going to be able to steal one now. So I think it's going to help the community. I hope the city council agrees and passes it. I think that they will. This ordinance was in place for the last 2 years and it sunsetted in January. And I think that we've seen a significant reduction in theft from merchant on over $300 in the last 2 years. So I'm happy to bring this forward. I think that when we see the state push back on Pueblo, I think Pueblo pushes back on the state and says, okay, well, we're going to drop it from $300 to $100, for at least the next 8 months. So how's that?
So what we might see is an uptick in tickets issued, but hopefully long-term, what
Decrease
we actually
in crime.
see. Yeah. Okay.
Totally.
All right, so another hot topic that we had last night at City Council, and actually we've basically had since last fall, is Black Hills Energy. Can you walk us through what this ballot initiative is, what the special election is for in May, and how this franchise fee works with Black Hills Energy?
Yeah, sure. So let me give you the timeline, how I know it. So last June, Black Hills Energy, after 8 years of no rate increase, filed at the PUC for a rate increase of 18%. They came and told me and President Aliff about it a little bit before June, and obviously we were not accepting of what they were telling us, and so us, along with Pueblo County and Petco, hired an attorney who's been following the case, very closely for us, advocating on our behalf. The city of Pueblo hosted a couple town halls in October in order to speak to the PUC and speak against rate increases, and told the PUC how that would affect them in their day-to-day life or in their business life. So we were really involved once the rate case started. And just so happens this year, 2025, in August, is our chance to take the off-ramp with Black Hills. So the off-ramp comes up every 5 years. Our actual franchise agreement ends in 2030. But for now, we're kind of trying to hit this August, time frame. So the city, we've been working with a team that meets probably every 2 weeks about municipalization, what that looks like moving forward for the city and for the community. And we decided to hire somebody to come in and do a study so that we would have accurate information moving forward.
The feasibility study.
It's a feasibility study provided by GDS, not GBS. And this study, it went out to RFP in December, so we've got a couple parts of it back. We received a piece back yesterday about educating the community and what that looks like moving forward. So the city council, the administration worked to put a ballot language together, essentially saying, if feasible, do the citizens of Pueblo allow the city to look at taking the off-ramp in August? And so what that means is, if it's passed by the community saying, yes, city, study it, see if it's feasible, come back with a plan, take the off-ramp in August, what that means is we won't be under contract with Black Hills anymore. So we won't receive the franchise fee, which, everybody keeps talking about this franchise fee.
And what is the franchise fee?
Yeah, well, the reality is the franchise fee is what you, the taxpayer, the ratepayer, pays Black Hills at 3%. So if
my bill pays for the franchise fee, that goes back to the city.
If you look at the back of your bill, it says franchise fee, 3%. It generates about $3.4 million to the city of Pueblo's general fund a year. But it's essentially like a fee, a tax that the citizens are paying on their electricity. And then Black Hills is in return paying that to the city of Pueblo. So I understand with the budget shortfalls where this can be a concern to the community. But we heard last night that, if feasible, we could see reduction in rate increases, which would be a reduction in a rate increase to the city of Pueblo, which maybe that 3% could be made up for if we don't have to pay the franchise fee if we decide to off-ramp from Black Hills. So the study is going to look at a couple different things. It's going to look at what would it be like if the city ran the utility. So if it was municipalization, we controlled the generation and transmission, and what's the third thing? Generation, transmission.
Oh, and like ownership of the
assets.
The assets.
Yeah. And so what that would look like. And then we're also trying to look at what would it be if we joined another co-op? What would it be if we created our own co-op? What is going to be the most feasible thing for the citizens is what we're looking for. If the survey comes back and says it's not feasible, we're not going to off-ramp. We're not going to increase prices to the consumers. We're going to stay with Black Hills and try to come up with another plan in the next 5 years when our franchise agreement is over. So I think that this is an opportunity for the community. It's an opportunity for the city to look at ways to reduce rates. As you know, the city, Pueblo, the community, we pay some of the highest rates in Colorado, if not the highest rate in Colorado. As a small business owner myself, I have 4 businesses. We pay Black Hills a little bit over $100,000 a year
through your 4 businesses.
Just through my 4 businesses. The city of Pueblo is, I think, millions that we pay, and all of the infrastructure they provide to the city. So it's very expensive, and I think that this is an opportunity for the city to look at reduced rate. Reduction in costs. I know Black Hills is not very happy with us right now. They've already started their smear campaign against the city. So I think it's important to have these conversations and make sure that we're educating the community in the way that we should be. Like I said, the survey came back yesterday providing some educational tools that the city can use, like what does a yes vote mean? What does a no vote mean? The timeline.
Sure.
And really trying to make sure that the citizen, your average voter, has all the information they need come May when we have this election.
I also think that you made a really important distinction. So you mentioned two things. There's the opportunity to municipalize, but then there's the potential opportunity for a co-op. So does that mean that the city has not made a decision and that's part of the feasibility study? Because I think what I've been hearing from a lot of our citizens is the only option is municipalization. Is that true?
Yeah, we haven't made any kind of a decision moving forward. The only decision that has been made is give the decision to the citizens on what they want to see and if it's feasible. And I think that we're going to have opportunity and options, just like our attorney said last night, to look and see what's going to be best for the community at whole. And if it's Black Hills, it's Black Hills. But if there's a chance that it's not, and there's a chance that you're going to have a rate reduction, then I think that that's something that you have to look at. We already know that if we choose to take the off-ramp in August, you're going to have at least a 3% rate reduction because you're not going to be paying the franchise fee to the city. So we're obviously going to have to look at other revenue sources, but that we already know that you're already going to have a 3% decrease.
Okay. So the decision is still in the hands of our citizens.
The people, yeah. The city council will be the ones that make the decision whether to take the off-ramp or not. But you heard many of them say last night that they're not going to go against what the community wants or what the survey says, that it's their job as elected officials to make sure that they carry the citizens' voices forward and the city's voices forward and make sure it's feasible for everybody.
Great. Okay. So I said we were going to focus on two main topics, but I think I lied. I would like to maybe talk about something exciting and positive. We had a really exciting week last week for the city. On Thursday, went before the Economic Development Commission, and we're going to have the Leonardo da Vinci Museum right here on the Riverwalk. So can you kind of walk us through that process? What did last week mean? What does this mean for Pueblo?
Yeah, so it's a super exciting time for the city, for the community, for Southern Colorado in general. We're going to have the first Da Vinci Museum in North America, which is super exciting, that they chose Pueblo to bring something so great here. So this kind of all started last year. Unfortunately, we separated ways with PBR. Their lease agreement had ended in the PBR Sports Performance Center, so a group of stakeholders got together and said, hey, what is the best use of this space? What is going to draw tax dollars? What is going to draw tourists? We reached out as a stakeholder group to different community members who we knew were interested in the space or interested in bringing a project forward. Ultimately, the Da Vinci project was selected because we believed that it was the best use to go into the facility. We've been to the EDC twice, so we had to get the okay from the EDC because it was part of the RTA project, the original project, saying that whatever the project is has to be unique and it has to generate regional tourism, international tourism into the community to really help jumpstart tourism dollars for communities who have been suffering. This has been a long project with the RTA. We have the boathouse, we have different sections of the Riverwalk, we had the PBR Sports Performance Center, we had a portion of the convention center and the exhibit hall that were all supposed to be generating tax revenue to the community. Except for the PBR Sports Performance Center was generating $0 because they weren't using the facility. They didn't have bull riders coming in. There was no running of the bulls down Union Avenue like there was supposed to be, and dirt and excitement, and that never happened. So we had to get rid of them, and now we're on to a project that we think will help generate tax revenue and tourism. So we had to really work closely with our partners at Urban Renewal because Urban Renewal is the fiscal agent. You know, they're the ones that own the building. They do all the reporting to the EDC. So we had to work with them in order to gain a lease agreement and for the Da Vinci project to move in. So we were instrumental in organizing the lease agreement, going to the EDC to ask for permission. So we put all of this together, went and gave a great presentation in December, but they wanted some more feedback and some more questions. So it was kind of discouraging at first, but I mean, we get it. It was a big project. We had big shoes that we're supposed to be filling, right, with PBR because they were under the impression that PBR was bringing 30,000 tourists in a year, which wasn't happening. So we had to go and do some explaining. And the EDC was very supportive. The governor was very supportive of this project. So we went last week to present, give them some more information, and they unanimously voted that this would be a great project for Pueblo. And so we got that final approval from the EDC. And the city council last night approved on second reading a patio lease agreement because they would like to bring an small outdoor cafe called Cafe Leonardo, I think, around the PBR Sports Performance Center on the Riverwalk. So as far as the city, we've checked all the boxes. The renewal has checked all the boxes, and we're ready to go. And we're looking forward. I think that they're going to open late fall of this year. So I'm really excited to see what this is going to bring to our community.
I mean, it's a really exciting project, and especially the fact that it's unique. There's 5 others in the entire world, but we're the only one in North America. One thing that has come up, though, a lot from the community is how much of an investment was this for the city, or how much money is this going to cost us?
Sure. So the cost to the city will be rent rebate to their outside space for a year. So they're supposed to pay us $8 a square foot for their outside. We gave them 1 free year of no payment to the city while they're doing construction, trying to get it open because we know that's going to be a little bit of a process. And then the Urban Renewal Authority abated their lease also for a year in order for them to do tenant finish for the property because they have to, change the floors.
You can't just turn a sports performance center into a museum overnight.
So while they're working to get their museum done, they're not going to be paying rent. I think that that's very doable. I think when you rent commercial spaces, that's something that the landlord usually provides to you as some kind of tenant.
It's an incentive.
Yeah, to come and do the build out and do what you need at your cost. So, the only other cost to the city is going to be our public works department is going to be unassembling the equipment and storing it. So we, until we find a better use for the equipment. So we just want to make sure that we hang on to it, that it's properly taken apart, and the city is going to store it until we find a project. So as far as that's the only cost.
But there wasn't an upfront cost. We didn't incentivize with a dollar figure.
No dollar figures. More of in-kind contribution, which the city of Pueblo provides other museums with in-kind contributions, like no rent or $1 rent a year. Or we help pay utilities, or you get money from our non-departmental nonprofit funding. So I think it's been very fair across the board, comparable to what we've provided to other museums in the community. And I think with Da Vinci, they're working with the other museums in the community, and they're going to have like a family pass or a yearly pass to where you can enjoy all the museums in the community and not just Da Vinci. And while people are coming here to visit Da Vinci, they'll also be able to enjoy all the other museums. So I think it's a win-win for everybody in the community. I think it's going to drive tourism dollars to the entire downtown area, all of Pueblo, really. I think it's going to be that big.
It's exciting.
Yeah, it's super exciting.
Great. Well, congratulations on bringing that across the finish line. I know it was obviously you, but there was a big team that was involved. So
there was a big team, and these are just everyday citizens that want to make a difference and want to see Pueblo grow, and they want to give back to our community. And so it's something that the city should totally support, something Urban Renewal should support, and it's something I think the community will support.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that kind of covers us for today with topics.
I just want to go back to the legislation that we're taking a stance against. One of the things that's been said multiple times is that we use municipal court to truly address the problems that are Pueblo specific. Now we have an example of that working from a larger retailer, where their crime went down, their theft went down. Do you want to say anything on that?
Yeah, totally. So we have a large big box store who was contemplating leaving Pueblo, which would be disastrous if they did. But because of our DICE team and our ability to ticket give citations to people, put people in jail for merchant theft, especially. That big box store has seen such a significant reduction in shrinkage that they're going to stay here. And they sent the city a letter thanking the city and the police department and the DICE team especially for what they've been able to do and helping their store recover merchandise and not be a target of the merchant theft that they had been seeing for years.
And if I remember correctly, there was actually a letter that came from corporate, and they were asked, what are you doing differently? What happened, and are you sure that your numbers are correct? Because they had such a significant drop-off in theft from their store. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, something that the police department should be really proud of, that the DICE team should be really proud of. They really work hand in hand with stores that see a lot of merchant theft. The officers will give the store manager, store owner, their cell phone numbers, essentially saying, hey, if you see this person, call. We'll be right here. We'll help do a sting. We'll get these people cited. And hopefully if we do it enough, they will stop coming to your store and they will stop stealing. And I think that this has been a perfect example of how that's helped. I think, up the Highway 50 corridor itself, we had seen a lot of the merchant theft, a lot of homeless, a lot of issues that were really plaguing that area. And I think our DICE team has done an exceptional job and really helped cleaning up that area.
A lot of reduced calls for service in that area.
Lots of reduced calls for service. I'm sure it has something to do with shutting down the roadway in. But yeah, lots of reduced calls.
That's fantastic. Okay. Anything else? So that concludes our first episode of Mayor's Mixtape. But if you are interested in asking a question of Mayor Graham, you can email mayor@pueblo.us, and we'll take your questions or a topic that maybe we need to dive into more. Plenty of our citizens have questions every day of, can you explain how this works? So looking forward to finding out what's important to our citizens and hearing more of your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see everybody next week.